If you're looking to become a freelancer or set up your own video production company, what's the kit you need to get started? Hello, my name is Jonathan Palfrey. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe as it massively helps me out. Now today I just wanted to go through with you what kit you actually need to get started in the sort of video production world. So say you're just starting out, you're a freelancer and you just want to start shooting professionally, you know, say working for us for example, and what would we need from you to be able to work on a freelance basis. Now it's going to vary massively from person to person, but I thought this would just be a really good just general guide to what sort of kit that I think you sort of need to get started. It's not necessarily the cheapest kit, it's not necessarily the most advanced kit, there might be certain specialist equipment you would need for your situation, but hopefully this is a good sort of guide and starting point where you can begin your video production journey. I am going to do a whole nother video talking about the absolute cheapest kit you can buy to get started, as well as maybe a used kit as well, so we're looking at different ways, but today we're just looking at sort of a general ideal kit for a freelancer or small video production. So let's start off with the camera, and for me the most obvious camera to go for right now would be the Sony a7 IV. It has its flaws, it's not perfect, you know, there are things like the cropping in 60p and also maybe sometimes concerns over overheating, but I have to say as a complete affordable package it is really hard to beat. Yes, there are cheaper cameras that can produce excellent image quality, and yes, there are other cameras that can do other things a lot better, but for me, I think if you were starting out in this sort of world, this would be a great pick. And certainly if we were looking for someone to work with us on a shoot and we needed an extra camera op with their own camera, if they say they had an a7 IV, I would be more than happy. Next up is what lens should you first buy. Some people absolutely love prime lenses, others prefer zooms. For me, I think when you're starting out, you want to keep things simple, and I would personally go for the Sigma 24-70. Now, if you're not going down the Sony route, if you're going down a crop sensor route, then I would definitely look at the 18-35 1.8. That is a hell of a lens, and if you're buying something like a Blackmagic 4K or a 6K, then I'd look at that instead. But I think if you're going down the full frame route with Sony, then the Sigma 24-70 is an absolutely great choice. There is cheaper alternatives. There are lenses like the Tamron. The only problem with the Tamron is it starts at 28mm, and for me that's not quite wide enough. Certainly you could get away with it. Certainly a lot of times that's not a problem, but I think that occasionally you'll want to get something wider. 24 is wide enough to get a good wide shot of a room, for example, or a landscape, where I feel 28, at that end you're sacrificing quite a bit of your kind of width on your focal length. I'd rather have a bit more on the wide end than the extra telephoto reach that the Tamron offers. Next up, you'll want to grab an ND filter too. This isn't super critical because if you know you're going to do a lot of shooting inside, then maybe you can skip this. But I think it's worth picking up at least one variable ND filter just in case. And I think if you just got the one lens, it kind of makes sense, then you can just buy the one ND filter. Now I've gone with the Freewell variable ND filter. It's great, it works really nicely, the colors don't shift or anything like that. It does an ideal job and it's not too expensive. There is things like the Tilta Mirage. Now I haven't tried that system, it's a whole matte box system and I'll be talking more about that later, about why you maybe shouldn't consider matte boxes. But I have to say it's an impressive system, and if you're willing to invest in it and you don't mind the bulk and size of it, then it's worth considering. That said, I think if you want something small, light and just for occasional use, you can't really beat the Freewell. Now, you need to put all of this onto something, and I would say you need to be looking at a half-decent tripod, something with a smooth, fluid head. We currently have a Miller tripod. It's absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love that tripod, and we use it for all various cameras of all different sizes. We've had that before we had our Sony kit, so to be honest, I think if we were buying again today, we wouldn't go for something that large. And normally the advice in the past would always be buy something that you can grow into. You're going to build out your kit, you may buy a bigger camera in the future, so you don't want to be sort of stuck with a tripod that's too small. However, I think that has changed. The reason why is cameras are getting smaller. I mean, look at the Komodo, that is a small camera, and even if you rig it out, it's still not going to be huge. So you don't need to sort of worry too much now about having a really big, heavy tripod that will last you years and years and years. Instead, I think, focus on something that is going to be more appropriate for the types of shoots you do and the size of the camera that you're using. The A7 IV, it's a really small camera. It's ideal, so you don't want something ridiculously heavy when it comes to a tripod to pair with it. As long as you get a decent fluid head, so things like the Satchler A series, they're really good and worth considering. Even Manfrotto, even their sort of tripods, which have been around for years now, they still really offer a good solution as an initial buy. Now, it's no point having a great camera if you don't have enough battery to last you throughout the whole day. And there's many solutions out there. You've got things like V-locks, you've got various sort of battery adapters you can buy, things you can fit underneath the camera, all that sort of stuff. For me, I think I keep it simple. I would just go out and buy 3 more Sony batteries, the official ones, for your camera. You don't need to, I think, buy all these other systems. They are great and they're certainly worth considering in the future, but I think it's all about keeping it small and lightweight. And the battery life is more than decent. It's good enough for most of the types of shoots that you'll be doing with this camera. So I would just stick with those Sony batteries. 4, I would say in total, is safe enough for a full day shoot. So that means you get 1 with the camera, so you need 3 additional ones. You could obviously buy more if you need to. You can get away with 3 in a day, to be honest. The battery life is that good, and I think in most days you would never need more than 3 batteries. But to be safe, and I would just pay that little bit extra and buy the 4th. Of course, linked to batteries, you need a charger, and unfortunately, the A7 IV doesn't actually come with one, and that is a little bit frustrating. That said though, as good as the official Sony charger is, it only can charge 1 battery at a time, and personally I prefer USB battery chargers because you can often have dual chargers on them and you can easily plug them in absolutely anywhere. You know from if you watch my videos in the past how much I love USB charging. And you can charge in the camera as well, although I'd rather save that as a backup option rather than your main charging solution. Now, if you haven't seen already, I actually did a whole video talking about how I built a DIY USB sort of charging hub for my Blackmagic kit, and I will be making one for my Sony kit as well. So check out that video for a bit of inspiration, how you could set up your own little mini charging hub. Like batteries, when shooting professionally, you need enough media to last a full day shoot. Maybe longer if you're doing certain types of shoot, you're traveling far and you can't bring a laptop, but definitely you want to make sure you've got enough for the single day at least. With the A7 IV, I think you can be looking at a couple of 128GB cards. You don't necessarily need more than that, but I think you want, 256 to 500 gig in total of media to get you through safely a full day of shooting, regardless of the shooting situation. Now you're probably wondering, is it better to buy 1 256 card or is it better to buy 2 128 gig cards? And I personally would always go with 2. There are 2 big reasons for doing that. One, it means that you're now spreading the risk so that if you ever lose one card or one breaks, then you haven't lost all your data for that shoot day. The other reason, even if it's not just down to losing data, if one card were to break, and SD cards do break over time, then, even if you discover it's broken before the shoot day, at least you've got another card that you can use. Especially when shooting professionally, you want backup options, and that's why it's a good idea to have at least a couple of cards for your setup. For us, we are using the Angelbird 128 gig cards in our A7 IV. They work great and they do a really nice job. There might be more affordable options like for the likes of ProGrade and others, although I haven't actually tested those, so I can't recommend them right now. So you've got your camera kit sorted, now let's talk about lighting. And actually lighting has really advanced in the last few years. There's some really affordable options that produce stunningly good light and are really portable, lightweight, and absolutely ideal for someone starting out in the freelance world. For me, I've done a review on this before, but the Amaran 60X would be my first choice when it comes to a key light to begin with. It's not the brightest light in the world, and there will be certain situations where it wouldn't be bright enough, unfortunately. But actually, I think in a lot of cases, if you're doing a lot of sort of corporate shoots for clients or small video productions, then the 60X will be more than enough. The reason I'd go for the X over the D is because At this level, the chances are you're going to be shooting a lot of mixed environments where you'd have no control over the room lighting. As much as you'd love to be able to turn off the entire office lighting so that you can make your interview look really nice like you would do in a YouTube scenario, unfortunately, when you're working with clients, they won't let you do that. It's also really good for your B-roll shots as well. If you want to have B-roll shots that look much better, the best way you can do that is just by adding a bit of nice lighting. You know, a boring office shot with suddenly a really nice key light on it can look amazing, and it really massively improves the overall production value. We put so much effort into our interview shots, you know, we put all the perfect lighting and all that, and we worry so much about that, and then we seem to forget B-roll. When we do our B-roll, when we do our cutaway shots, they always look a bit, you know, underwhelming compared to the A-roll shot, and that's fine, I guess. But I think, well, why don't we put more effort into that and worry less about the interviews, which are going to be covered up by the cutaways and B-roll anyway. So that's why I would say a small portable light that is color changeable is really key, and that's why I love the Amaran 60X so much. With that, of course, you will want a softbox, and of course there are some very cheap options out there, but I think it's hard to beat the Light Dome 2. The Aperture Light Dome 2 is sort of like an industry standard now. I think anyone who is doing this sort of work day in, day out, they know the sort of look they're gonna get from that softbox. And I think it's a really good standard. You know, people like it, people recognize it. If they watch YouTube videos, they have seen that sort of lighting all the time. And if you're working with other people, they'll know how to set one up. It just makes a lot of sense to go with a Light Dome 2 if you have the budget to go for one. I'd also suggest grabbing a very cheap umbrella as well off Amazon, because they're great. As I was saying, when you're running around doing your cutaway shots, just sticking an umbrella with the 60X on a battery system, that gives you a really nice quick soft lighting. It also is really handy just in situations where maybe you need to carry light on kit, and then you can fit everything into one bag rather than have to carry the quite large Light Dome 2. You will of course need a light stand for your light setup, and I would just recommend, you know, going on Amazon and finding something that's half decent that will be able to support the weight of the setup that you're going to be using. You don't want anything too large, to be honest. Anything too heavy and big, you're just not going to want to carry it around, and there'll be a lot of shoots where you may be required to travel on public transport, for example. So find something that certainly can fit into your tripod bag and that you can carry easily on your own. But that said, you want to find something that will be stable and isn't going to fall over onto your talent. Now let's move on to the audio, and for me it's quite simple. It's the Rode Wireless 2 Go's. Are they the best mics out there? Are they the only solution? No, there's many other options out there. There are better options out there. But in terms of just a simple setup, they are really hard to beat. You've got those two transmitters into one receiver, which is so handy, so you can do two people on camera if you need to occasionally. The mics themselves actually record, so you've already got a backup recording just in case there's an issue with the signal. There's so many good reasons why they are worth going for. There are, of course, alternatives such as the DJI new microphones, and I'm sure they're great. I haven't tested them though. But what I would say is just look at one of these kind of affordable systems. They're a really great place to start, and for the vast majority of the shoots that you'll be doing, they will meet your needs perfectly. I would say definitely get some lapel mics for them. The Rode lav mics that they make themselves are more than good enough for most people, and I would definitely recommend picking them up as well. Partly because they actually do produce a slightly better sound quality than the built-in mics on the Rode Wireless 2 Go's. But also just because they look nicer. You know, having a microphone that's clipped on like this does look a lot better than having that kind of large unit attached. If you don't already own at least a half decent pair of wired headphones, then you'll need to pick up some of those as well. It's really important that you monitor your recording. Yes, the microphones may be recording internally as well, so if there's a loss of signal, it's not the end of the world. But you do want to make sure, because there's other things. There's things like rustling noise, there's background noise that may occur, and you might not notice it if you're recording something without listening to headphones. You know, that's usually when I get audio issues, is when I'm doing these YouTube videos, because I can't listen to myself while I'm actually recording. So it is really worth having a pair of half-decent headphones when doing your filming for a client. Unfortunately, the monitor on the A7 IV is a bit underwhelming. It's not terrible if you use the screen brightness boost. It's okay, it does improve it to enough that you can see it outside just about. But it is very, very small, and it's really hard to see exactly what's going on with your image on there. So you probably want to have some sort of monitoring solution, which is frustrating. I'd rather not have to buy a monitor as well, and that's one of the reasons I absolutely love the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro, because it's got such an amazing built-in daylight viewable screen. However, I think in this case you are going to need to purchase a monitor, especially if you're shooting outside. For me, when it comes to monitors, as long as you go for something that is daylight viewable, that is key. There are many good options out there now. You could go down the route with the Atomos Shinobi. It's a fine monitor, does a great job, but actually I would probably recommend something like the Feelworld LUT 6 monitor, which is a bit cheaper, has input and output for HDMI, and also a few different powering options as well. It also has quite a nice hinge system for attaching it to the top of your camera. For both your light and your screen, you'll probably need some Sony NP-F batteries. Once again, just get up onto Amazon here for these. There are some really great ones that I will be doing a review of very soon, which you can actually charge off USB-C. As you know, I love USB, so I would definitely consider picking those up. If not those, then just go for another solution that maybe include the chargers as well. There's many out there that include the USB chargers. And once again, if you look at my video where I talk about building a charging hub, you could mix and match some different chargers where you could have your Sony NP-F battery charger along with your Sony FW battery charger for your camera, all built onto one hub system that you can just plug in with one cable into the wall. Finally, the last bit of camera equipment that I would say you definitely want to pick up straight away is a cheap and cheerful reflector. These things, I mean, they're so cheap to buy, but they're just so useful. It's amazing how many shots we have made look so much better by just using a reflector. Whether it's just to put a bit of bounce in from the other side when shooting an interview, or whether it's to use it to soften the sunlight on someone's face for an exterior shot, it just adds so much production value. It'll add far more production value to your final shot than spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds or thousands even on lenses and cameras. A reflector will make your image quality look so much better and is totally worthwhile that very, very cheap investment. So there you go. That is all the kit you need to get started as a freelancer in the video production world. There are obviously different variations, and as I mentioned before, some people will need specialist bits of kit for the type of work that they do. But I hope this is just a really good starting point and guide to kind of give you an idea of what you may need. Now, there are certain bits of kit that I really wouldn't recommend picking up straight away, despite all the temptations and the reviews and the things you see on Facebook where people have cameras rigged out with all this stuff attached and it looks really cool, but you really don't need it. And that's going to be another video that I'll be doing on another day, so make sure you subscribe to my channel for that video in the future. Please leave a comment below if there is any bits of essential kit that you think a freelancer should be purchasing straight away. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.